So what did you think of Buppa's speech today?
Well, I think it was, you all had, especially the family, had the future in mind. Being that we're not 20 years old anymore, I think it's beautiful. Whatever I saw my mother in a video just a little bit, and I saw her walking. It was the most, I can't even describe it. To see my mother walking again and she's no longer on this earth, because we weren't used to it anymore. I know the soccer field, we watched you play soccer. And she's feeding the kitten and he's walking. So therefore I find this part must be in the future that you'd like to show your children or your grandchildren, or like me, my great-grandchildren, and show them how we lived. I'm sure you're going to live differently, again, like we did differently. And you explain the family. I do it now in pictures. You know all the pictures that I have. And somehow or other you love the grandchildren all. Some a little more, some a little less. It depends their character.
Buppa was talking about that you two have different memories of Germany.
Oh, completely.
So why is that?
But what?
Why?
Why? Also, I suffered nothing as far as beatings or any concern. Matter of fact, I helped other Jews. I was too bad I don't have the picture here with me. Blonde, blue-eyed, pigtail. Matter of fact, I went to school, Jewish high school, and I was standing near in Cologne, this was, near the dome. It was a big area where the kids gathered, and I gathered with the kids. When this SS car came up, convertible, and two SS guys, these black uniforms, where you're scared already when you see it, went like this to me to come over to them. I believe my heart fell in my shoes at that moment. It took me years to pick it back up again. When I got there, I was asked, do your parents know that you're standing there with these Jewish kids? And I looked them straight. I was their kid, straight in the face like I look at you. But I am Jewish. They took off faster than you could even spit. So therefore, I could go to a drugstore and get drugs for the Jewish people. I went all over. Except one day, they had a parade for Hitler. And that parade, everybody supposed to have their uniform on, or else. And we lived in the outskirts of Cologne, and I was caught in middle of the city. Now, had they caught me, it was easy that I was Jewish. I didn't have a uniform. So I was hiding all day long. This is the age of 12, 13, so it was not that I was a grown-up. From one park to another, when I heard them to the next park, it was nighttime and I came home to a mother who was standing at the doorway with her hair pulled out. So these are different experiences. This is only a little part I'm telling you, which he all missed, thank God. The worst one was, guess, the 9th of November, when my father was hiding we hid him in the roof and covered him up, and they didn't find him.
Aunt Christina, did you know that day was coming? Was it announced?
No. There was no announcement except car lots full of, always strangers, never from the same town would come, always strangers. In other words, in future time, like he pointed finger, it shouldn't happen. They didn't want to have it to happen. I never knew anybody.
Okay, and so that day, they came looking for your father, and you said they went up to your grandfather first?
Yes, and my grandfather told them where my father was. Not that the poor man wanted to, but somehow the fear took
You
over.
were scared.
And this particular man who found him used to beat up my brother every day like he was going to school. He's the only man that put fear into me to this day. He's the only man that I can't even sell it. Well, he found him and he played football with my father. Till they went to, you saw the stairs.
Tell us what you mean by football. People will think you mean the game football. You mean they beat him.
He kicked him.
Real football. They kicked him like you kick a football. At that moment, again, remember, I'm only a kid. I went to get a what do you call it?
A knapsack. Knapsack.
Knapsack. And I put in there wash, salami, all the money in the house, clothes for my father, a new pair of shoes, and put it on him. Because I had a feeling they're not going to stay there, they're going to take him away. And I went to other Jewish people, can I help you? They didn't stop me for some reason. One said, don't touch me, I'm so beaten up, it hurts when you touch me. Others accepted the food that I had in my hand. All by myself. There was nobody else there but me that did this. And at night time, they marched them off to Buchenwald, where my father was for 2 months, when they let him go because they couldn't kill them fast enough. So they let the people home that were in the First World War. So my father could come home. And then I left right after that with the children's transport for England. My brother was leaving for Israel, and my parents were
It was
still
no
in
Israel,
Palestine at that time. And my parents were still in Germany, which was a dangerous thing to be. But she had heard that the American consul would take bribes. I'm like him, I'm going to throw an eye to go to America. So she went. Now this is a woman that was born in a little village. Like that my mother did this is beyond my belief. Took all the money she could find in the house and whatever it is and went there and bought herself the number. You had to have certain numbers to go to America. And I was in England that time, and she sent me a card, don't worry, we are on our way to America. And I jumped for joy. And the woman I was living with said, don't jump so much, they still can get killed on the way to America. Now did I describe the woman? So what else do you know, I came to America, and I met his girlfriend.
Grandma, go back to the night when they took your father away. Wasn't there a scary moment with an
A
SS?
scary moment? Jamie, I must have peed in my pants all night long. I was so scared. They took the Torah and rolled it on the street. They knocked the windows in. The only person that did not go to Buchenwald was my grandfather, because the young man with our SS uniform was supposed to arrest my grandfather. My grandpa just had lent him rather. Dingamiddel is what?
What?
Dingamiddel?
Fertilizer.
Fertilizer, you see. Gave him fertilizer, which business my grandfather was in, so he could get a new crop, and then he would pay my grandfather. And my grandfather was lying on the couch and he said to the man, Willem, mich willst du verhaften?
You want to arrest
Me
me?
you want to arrest? I helped you yesterday, today you want to arrest me? He closed the door. And my grandfather didn't have to go to this concentration camp, for which I am grateful to at least one thing.
There was also a story, the man who put the gun,
That's the story where the man put the
tell
gun.
that story, what happened?
As I told you, I put all those stuff in the knapsack, whatever I had. But they
Food.
were food, yeah. They were all collected in this big room from the kibbutz. And I wanted to go
There
upstairs.
was a kibbutz in her hometown where people learned how to plant and fertilize the modern way in order to go to Israel. So there were some Jewish people there learning this. Okay.
So when I wanted to go up the stairs, the second, third, fourth step, this guy comes and he puts a gun to my head and he said, one more step and I'll kill you. My mother is screaming and I'm looking straight in his face. Do you have a father? Still the same kid? Do you want somebody to do that? That you don't give your father what you got and the father has to starve? And then you want to kill me for giving my father? The man stepped aside and I went upstairs. You call that a good Nazi?
Call that a brave grandma.
And not a bad grandma. You know that from self. Well, whatever else you want to know, you gotta ask me because I forgot. Well, I tell you one other story where I was saved. Had my paper. The paper could go to America. I got all by myself. 13, 14 years old. I went to the American consul and I went to where my papers were. He said, I can't find your papers, you have to come back some other time. I said, no, I want my papers now. He said, no, I'm not giving it to you. So it was an armchair next to his desk. So I sat in there very comfortably and I started getting tears, and I cried and cried and cried till that guy called somebody in, hey Mac, get in and get that girl a passport because I can't hear the crying anymore. And I got my stuff to go to America.
That was in England, right?
That was in England. I get to the port to
Embarked.
embark into the boat.
The war was on.
And well, actually, the story besides that is more important is when I did get the papers to go to America, each boat had to be filled up because the war was on and they wanted to get as many people out of England as possible. So I was supposed to, let's say, leave on a Thursday, I don't remember anymore exactly, but they told me to go a day earlier because the quota wasn't on that boat, and then they could pick up another kid to go on the boat, the next one. But my parents only knew that I was on the first boat because they couldn't write it because it was wartime. So they were notified by hand, but it was the wrong boat. But the wrong boat was torpedoed on the way to America. And my family at that time only knew about me being on that boat. Except my mother said, my child is alive. I would know if she was dead. For which she was correct, because a few days later I showed up. So that's a story shall never forget. Just because that boat wasn't filled, I was saved. Because there was not one survivor.
They must have been stunned when you arrived.
And what?
They must have been stunned when you arrived, your family.
Yeah. They were sitting already, you know what shiva is?
Mm.
They were sitting already shiva for me.
Alright.
But I wasn't aware of it. I arrived good and fat and I was, I don't know, what else do you want to know? Some of it you've heard.
Walter, is there any stories we should ask Grandma for?
Any stories you should ask Grandma that she hasn't told you?
Yeah.
That you'd want the grandchildren to hear?
What haven't you told that is of importance?
One of the importance is the beginning in America.
Oh,
I should have gone to school, but I had no.
they have no
wanted-
money at all.
No money around. So I didn't go. I went to a factory and I started working in a factory so we would have money. It was not exactly what I wanted to do, but I didn't mind. I was in America. I was free. Free, I tell you another story. We had opened up the first bakery, and there was at that time about 4 or 5 unions we had. But Walter was in the hospital with bleeding out, and I had to open up the store by myself.
It's the second bakery.
Take any shirt.
It was the second bakery.
Huh?
It was the second bakery. It was big homemade.
Yeah, it was big homemade. You're right.
Yeah.
And the man from the
Union,
which union? That was the
Teamsters
Teamsters Union
Bread Bakers Union,
yeah, well,
Cake
no,
Bakers.
at that date only the Teamsters came in, but Walter was in the hospital. And he walked in, he said, "I'm working here." I said, "I'm sorry, sir, you're not working here. I haven't interviewed you, and my husband's in the hospital. I have no intention of interviewing you today." He gave, not me. I never gave the unions a penny, and I always got what I wanted. And we had a little argument back and forth, and I told him that I'm free in America, that's why I came here, and you're not going to change my freedom just because you want money. But he left, and another baker said, "Hide, he's going to kill you for sure. You don't do that to this union." I said, "I do it." From therefore on, Walter let me
Handle the union.
handle all the unions, and nobody got a penny, never mind.
She
They were
never
afraid.
bribed anybody, no way.
No way. It's the straight way or no
And
way.
they were taking money all the time. You know.
Straight way or no way. Matter of fact, one girl was supposed to get a pension. He wouldn't give it to her. So I said, "I know what you know that I know what you know." I meant to tell him you take money. That girl gets a pension. And she got it for a long time.
She retired and we paid into a union pension. She had what they call in French, balls.
Grandma, before I let you go, I asked Buppa this earlier. How often do you think about your life in Germany?
It was a village where 300 people lived. And as a child, prior to being Hitler around, I found it as a child already boring. And I used to ask my parents 3 times a day, how old do I have to be to leave here? But Hitler helped me along that I could leave. It was a very boring little village, and my parents loved it. My grandparents lived across the street. I visit them 20 times a day. That's why I think grandchildren are something special, because I was special. He would measure my pigtails every day.
You should mention that they had a kibbutz there. In other words, the Rothschilds gave money to have Jewish people switch from academics into agriculture, so they could make the desert bloom in Israel, but what later became Israel. And in that little village, the Jews owned all kinds of fields and acres of land, And they gave these acres of land to be planted by the people who learned this in the kibbutz. And the farmers in the village said they know more about planting than we do. They had scientific methods, you see. And they regarded these kibbutz people, they looked at them with a lot of honor, right? They say, look what they did to the land.
They were very well.
So, Grandma, how often now do you think about Germany?
Every night.
Well, we talk about it a lot. We
Every
sit on the
night.
terrace, and somehow or other we might start off as look at the view. You see the Empire State Building, and it ends up in Curzon. You know, I don't understand it. It's not that I think about it. No matter where we sit alone for a long time, it's either part of the war or part of my life, which I very often find things again that I had long forgotten. You know, then I'll explain it to him. Things, but otherwise, I don't live it. It doesn't make me happy or unhappy.
We talk about it all the time, and we come to the conclusion that how a civilized country like Germany was able to change from one day to the next and follow this idiot that wrote everything down in his book what he's going to do, and nobody believed him. That we talk about all the time. And we sure know a lot of good Germans, people that they howled with the wolves because they would have lost their livelihood otherwise.
Now, what I was trying to tell you before is, in the whole story that I tell you, it's a story. As far as I'm concerned, at this point, it's a story. The only story I'm going to start crying, is my grandmother. This is I cannot forgive, I cannot forget, and the minute I think about it, I cry.
Tell them what happened to your grandma.
Well,
Tell the camera.
Tell the camera.
she was put into a concentrated membership. Her grandmother, used to help everybody, used to bake cake for everybody, and she was just a wonderful human being. You pick up and you take in a concentration camp and you burn her. How can I forget? I can't forget and I can't forgive, and I cry over it. How many years now?
A long time.
A
We're
long
talking about
time.
1943.
And I see her walking, talking daily. That's the only thing that is I'm left with. And I guess I'll be left with it till the day I die. It's a sad story, and I can't understand it. There's so many people have been gassed, but of course it wasn't my grandmother. So it's, I guess for people who haven't lived through it,
They can't understand.
they can't understand it. It's not words that, it's your life. It's my childhood went kaput. I didn't have. I guess my old age is better than my youth. Let's put it that way, which is very good.